August evening in Houston had been perfect in every way that mattered to Mark and Lauren Gilbert. It was Mark's birthday, and they had celebrated with a quiet dinner at home while their 2-year-old daughter Allison played nearby, her bright eyes taking in everything around her with the curious intensity that only toddlers possess. The house felt warm and full of love, exactly the kind of sanctuary every parent dreams of creating for their children. Mark stood at the kitchen sink, washing the last of the dinner dishes while Lauren tidied up the living room. These were the moments he treasured most, the peaceful aftermath of family time, when the house settled into its evening rhythm and they could reflect on another day of watching their daughter grow and thrive. Through the baby monitor on the kitchen counter, they could hear the gentle sounds of Allison settling into her crib, the soft rustling of blankets and the occasional contented sigh that told them she was drifting towards sleep. The monitor had been one of their best parenting investments, a Foscom wireless camera system that allowed them to keep watch over Allison even when they weren't in her room. The camera provided a clear view of her crib, and the audio quality was so good they could hear every breath, every small movement. For parents of a deaf child, visual monitoring was especially crucial. Allison had been born with profound hearing loss and used cochlear implants during the day, but they were removed at night to ensure comfortable sleep. What Mark and Lauren didn't know was that their baby monitor had become a window into their most private moments for someone with far more sinister intentions than caring for a child. It was approximately 10 p.m. on August 10th, 2013, when Mark first heard the voice. He was scrubbing a stubborn spot on one of the dinner plates when a sound from the monitor made him pause. At first, he thought it might be interference from another electronic device, or perhaps a neighbor's baby monitor picking up their frequency. But as he listened more carefully, his blood began to turn cold. The voice was distinctly male, with what sounded like a British or European accent, and it was speaking directly to his daughter. Not the gentle, sing-song voice that adults typically use with small children, but something harsher, more aggressive. The words that came through the small speaker would haunt Mark's nightmares for years to come. "Wake up, Allison, you little expletive," the voice commanded, using language so vile that Mark's hands began to shake as he processed what he was hearing. The stranger knew his daughter's name. He was talking to her directly, calling to her through the very device that was supposed to keep her safe. Mark dropped the plate back into the soapy water and rushed toward Allison's room, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Lauren, sensing something was wrong from his sudden movement and the expression of horror on his face, followed close behind. As they moved through the hallway, the voice continued its terrible monologue, calling their little girl an effing moron and using sexually explicit language that made Lauren physically ill. When they burst through Allison's bedroom door, they found their daughter standing in her crib, looking around with confusion but thankfully unable to hear the horrific words being directed at her. Her cochlear implants had been removed for the night, which meant she slept in complete silence, protected by her deafness from the psychological assault taking place just feet away from her bed. But the voice didn't stop when Mark and Lauren entered the room. If anything, it became more aggressive, now directing its venom at the parents themselves. The hacker realized he had been discovered and seemed to take perverse pleasure in the family's terror. For several more agonizing seconds, obscenities and threats continued to pour through the monitor speaker while Mark and Lauren stood frozen, trying to process the violation they were experiencing. The hacker had been able to see Allison through the camera and knew her name because it was written in decorative letters on the wall above her bed. What should have been a loving personal touch in her nursery, her name spelled out in colorful letters, had become the very thing that allowed a stranger to create the illusion of intimate knowledge and personal targeting that made the attack so much more terrifying. Mark's protective instincts kicked in, and he immediately disconnected the monitor from the power source, plunging the room into the kind of silence that should have been peaceful but now felt ominous. The voice stopped abruptly, but the damage had been done. The family's sense of safety and privacy had been shattered in the span of just a few minutes. Lauren scooped Allison up from her crib, holding her close while trying to process what had just happened. Their daughter, mercifully unaware of the horror that had just unfolded, settled contentedly against her mother's shoulder, still drowsy from her interrupted sleep. But for Mark and Lauren, sleep would not come easily for many nights to come. "Right away I knew something was wrong," Mark would later tell ABC News, but that simple statement couldn't capture the depth of violation and fear that had consumed him in those moments. The realization that a stranger had been watching their family, possibly for weeks or months, felt like discovering that someone had been living in their walls, observing their most intimate moments as parents. The technical reality of what had happened was almost as disturbing as the emotional impact. Mark believed the hacker had infiltrated the monitor through the family's internet router, exploiting the wireless connectivity that made the device so convenient for modern parents. The monitor, like many internet-connected devices, had likely been shipped with default passwords that the family had never changed, creating an open door for anyone with basic hacking skills and malicious intent. In the days following the attack, Mark and Lauren learned that they were far from alone in their experience. Baby monitor hacking had become an increasingly common form of digital intrusion, with hackers targeting the devices not just for the perverse pleasure of terrorizing families, but also for more organized criminal purposes. Some hackers had been known to record footage from compromised cameras, selling access to private family moments on dark web marketplaces where voyeurs paid premium prices for intimate glimpses into strangers' lives. The thought that their most precious moments as a family, bedtime stories, middle-of-the-night feedings, quiet conversations in Allison's room, might have been recorded and distributed to strangers was almost too horrific for Mark and Lauren to comprehend. The camera that was supposed to help them be better parents had potentially made them unwitting performers in someone else's twisted entertainment. Mark described the experience as feeling like somebody broke into your house, but in many ways, the digital intrusion felt even more violating than a physical break-in would have been. A burglar might steal their possessions, but this hacker had stolen something much more precious: their sense of safety in their own home, their confidence in their ability to protect their child, and their trust in the technology they had embraced to make parenting easier. The psychological impact on the family was immediate and profound. Lauren found herself unable to sleep, lying awake at night wondering if other devices in their home might be compromised, if their smartphones might be recording their conversations, if their laptop's camera might be transmitting their daily activities to unknown observers. The digital age, which had promised to make their lives more connected and convenient, suddenly felt fraught with invisible dangers. Mark threw himself into researching cybersecurity, learning about firewalls and encryption, changing passwords on every device they owned, and investigating the vulnerabilities that had made their family a target. But no amount of technical knowledge could erase the memory of that voice calling his daughter by name, using language that no child should ever hear directed at them. The incident occurred during a time when Internet of Things, IoT, devices were rapidly proliferating in American homes, but cybersecurity awareness was lagging far behind adoption rates. The Fosca monitors involved in multiple hacking incidents sold for around $200 and allowed parents to monitor their children remotely through smartphones, but the convenience came with security risks that many families didn't fully understand. For Allison, the long-term impact of the incident would be minimal. Her deafness had protected her from hearing the hacker's abuse, and she slept through the entire ordeal. Mark later called this a blessing, recognizing that his daughter's disability had, in this one terrible instance, shielded her from trauma that could have affected her for years. But for Mark and Lauren, the healing process would take much longer. They had to rebuild their sense of security not just in their home, but in the digital tools that had become integral to modern parenting. Every baby monitor, every security camera, every smart device now carried the potential for invasion and violation. The family's story became part of a growing national conversation about the security of connected devices and the need for stronger cybersecurity measures in consumer electronics. Their experience highlighted the gap between the marketing promises of smart home technology and the reality of its vulnerabilities, between the convenience of wireless connectivity and the privacy risks it created. In sharing their story with the media, Mark and Lauren hoped to warn other parents about the risks they had unknowingly taken and to advocate for better security standards in baby monitoring devices. They wanted other families to understand that the default settings on many devices were not secure, that changing passwords was essential, and that the benefits of connected technology came with responsibilities for digital hygiene that many consumers weren't prepared for. The hacker who terrorized their family was never identified or caught. Like many cybercriminals, he had operated from the shadows, leaving no trail that law enforcement could follow. He might have been someone in their neighborhood, someone across the country, or someone on the other side of the world. The global nature of the internet meant that their most intimate family space could be invaded by anyone, anywhere, with the right technical knowledge and wrong intentions. The broader implications of their experience extended far beyond a single family's trauma. As more homes filled with connected devices, from baby monitors to security cameras to smart speakers, the potential for similar invasions multiplied exponentially. Each device represented both a convenience and a vulnerability, a tool that could enhance family life or become a vector for exploitation. For the Gilbert family, the voice that came through their baby monitor on that August night served as a harsh introduction to the dark side of the digital age. It forced them to confront the reality that privacy, once taken for granted within the walls of their own home, now required constant vigilance and technical expertise to maintain. The incident transformed them from casual consumers of technology into advocates for cybersecurity awareness. They learned to view every connected device with suspicion, to research security features before making purchases, and to regularly update and monitor the digital tools they used to keep their family safe. Years later, as Allison grew older and began to understand the world around her more fully, Mark and Lauren faced the difficult decision of whether to tell her about what had happened that night. How do you explain to a child that someone once tried to hurt her through the very technology that was supposed to protect her? How do you teach digital literacy without creating paralyzing fear of the tools that define modern life? The baby monitor that was supposed to give them peace of mind had instead taught them that in the connected world, peace of mind requires constant vigilance. The voice that should never have been there had spoken a truth that no parent wants to hear, that in the digital age, the walls of your home are no longer enough to keep the dangers of the world at bay. Today, baby monitor security has improved significantly, with manufacturers implementing better default security settings and consumer awareness of cybersecurity risks has grown. But the Gilbert family's story remains a cautionary tale about the price of convenience in an interconnected world, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest threats to our families come not through our doors or windows, but through the invisible networks that connect our most trusted devices to the wider world. The voice in the monitor had been silenced with a simple unplugging of the device, but the questions it raised about privacy, security, and trust in the digital age continue to echo in homes across the world, wherever parents rely on technology to help them keep their children safe, never quite sure who else might be watching through the lens of that helpful little camera.